Captain Lee Tae-wan stood at attention in the cold metal chamber of the Terran Defense Council. The room smelled of recycled air and fear. 10 men and women in dark uniforms sat behind a curved table, their faces hard as stone. Admiral Park Song-min, the man who had once called Tae-wan his best officer, would not meet his eyes. "Captain Lee," Admiral Park began, his voice echoing in the silent room. "You have been chosen for a special mission." Tae-wan knew what those words meant. Special mission was code for suicide run. He'd seen too many good soldiers receive special missions over the past 3 years of war. None of them ever came back. The holographic display flickered to life above the table. Images of burning cities and destroyed ships filled the air. The Kethani Empire had swept through human space like a plague, conquering world after world. Their blue-skinned warriors fought with weapons that could slice through steel like paper. Their ships moved faster than anything humanity had ever built. "The enemy has taken 17 colonies in the past 6 months, Admiral Park continued. Their next target is New Busan, our primary mining world in the Outer Rim. Intelligence reports suggest that Empress Janae herself leads this campaign." Tae-wan had heard stories about the Kethani Empress. She was said to be 10 feet tall, with eyes that glowed like stars. Some claimed she could kill a man with just a look. Others whispered that she drank human blood before battle. All the stories agreed on one thing. She was death itself wrapped in blue skin and armor. "Your mission is simple," Admiral Park said, though his voice suggested it was anything but simple. "You will infiltrate the Kethani forward base on the moon of Kepler 442b. You will locate and eliminate Empress Janae. Without their leader, the Kethani war machine will collapse." The room fell silent. Tae-wan could hear the distant hum of the space station's life support systems. He wanted to laugh. Simple, right? Walk into the most heavily defended position in known space and kill the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Why not ask him to punch a hole through the sun while he was at it? Sir Tae-wan said carefully. "Intelligence suggests the Empress travels with a personal guard of over 50,000 elite warriors. The base itself is protected by energy shields that can stop anything we have." That is correct," Admiral Park replied. "Which is why this must be a stealth operation. You will take a small team. 3 volunteers have already been selected." The door behind Tae-wan opened with a soft hiss. 3 familiar faces entered the chamber. Sergeant Kim Do-haeon, a man who had saved Taeyeon's life more times than he could count. Corporal Yoon Soo-jin, the best sniper he had ever seen. The private. Han Wasun, barely 20 years old, but already a veteran of 6 major battles. They all knew what this was. They all knew they were being sent to die. "The transport leaves in 6 hours, Admiral Park said. "You will have access to our most advanced stealth ship and experimental weapons. The details of your insertion will be provided during transit." Tae-wan studied the faces of the council members. Not one of them looked confident. Not one of them believed this mission would succeed. So why were they sending him? The answer came to him like a cold knife to the chest. This wasn't about winning the war. This was about getting rid of him. 3 months ago, Tae-wan had started asking questions. Why had the Kethani attack seemed so perfectly timed? Every human defensive strategy fail as if the enemy knew exactly what they were planning. Why did peace negotiations always collapse at the last moment? He had shared his concerns with Admiral Park, the man who had been like a father to him. Park had listened with a worried expression and promised to look into it. 2 weeks later, Tae-wan's security clearance had been reduced. His access to strategic planning meetings was revoked. His requests for leave were denied. Now he understood. The questions he had asked were too dangerous. The doubts he had raised were too uncomfortable. So they were sending him on a mission that would solve their problem permanently. "Any questions, Captain?" Admiral Park asked. "No, sir," Tae-wan replied. What was the point? He could refuse the mission, but that would only result in a court-martial and execution. At least this way, he had a chance to take some enemies with him. The briefing continued for another hour. Maps of the Kethani base, patrol schedules, weapon specifications. All of it felt like theater, an elaborate show to make the mission seem possible. But Tae-wan listened carefully anyway. If he was going to die, He wanted to make it count. When the briefing ended, the council members filed out without a word. Only Admiral Park remained, still avoiding Taewan's eyes. "Taewan," Park said quietly, "I want you to know that this decision came from above me. Far above me." "I understand, sir. Do you?" Park finally looked at him. 3 years ago, you were the best officer I had. You saved New Seoul from complete destruction. You held the line at Proxima Station when everyone else ran. You have been humanity's shield against the darkness. And now, I'm a liability." Park's silence was answer enough. "The questions you asked," Park continued, "they were the right questions. But asking them has made you dangerous to certain people. People who have the power to end careers or lives." Taewan nodded slowly. "So this is how it ends. It's not in battle against the enemy, but because I asked the wrong questions to the wrong people. You still have a choice," Park said. "You could disappear, change your name, find a quiet world on the rim, and live out your days in peace, and abandon my team. Let them die alone." Taewan shook his head. "No, we go together, or we don't go at all." Park smiled sadly. "I knew you would say that. It's why you were the best officer I ever had." As Taewan left the council chamber, he thought about the war that had consumed his life for 3 years. Humanity was losing badly. Each day brought news of another defeat, another world lost to the Cathani advance. The enemy seemed to know their every move, counter their every strategy. But what if the enemy wasn't really the enemy? What if the real threat was something else entirely? What if the war itself was a lie? These were the questions that had gotten him into trouble. These were the doubts that had sealed his fate. 6 hours later, Taewan stood in the docking bay. With his team, the stealth ship Phantom waited for them, its black hull almost invisible against the stars. Du-Hyen was checking their weapons for the 3rd time. Sujin was reviewing targeting data on her tablet. Wusong was trying to hide his fear behind a brave smile. "Ready, sir?" Du-Hyen asked. Taewan looked at his team. These people had volunteered to die with him. They deserved to know the truth. "Listen," he said quietly. "This mission isn't what it seems. We're not being sent to win the war. We're being sent to die because someone wants us gone." The 3 soldiers exchanged glances. None of them looked surprised. "We figured that out when they gave us the assignment," Sujin said. "Question is, what do we do about it?" Taewan smiled grimly. "We go anyway. We complete the mission. And maybe, just maybe, we find out who really wants this war to continue." As the Phantom lifted off and headed toward enemy space, Taewan made himself a promise. He would find Empress Janae. He would look her in the eye. And before he died, he would learn the truth about this war, even if that truth destroyed everything he believed about humanity's fight for survival. The Phantom shuddered as enemy fire struck its shields. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit as Taewan fought to keep the ship steady. Through the viewport, he could see the alien landscape of Kepler-4, for to be rushing toward them at deadly speed. "Stealth system is down," Sujin reported from the weapons station. "They detected us the moment we entered the system. So much for the element of surprise," Du-Hyen muttered, checking his rifle one more time. Someone knew we were coming. Taewan gritted his teeth as another blast rocked the ship. The mission was falling apart before it even began. The Cathini had been waiting for them, their defense grid already active, their fighters already in position. It was as if they had received advance warning. "Brace for impact," Taewan shouted as the ship's engines failed. "This is going to hurt." The Phantom crashed through the canopy of strange blue trees and carved a burning path across the alien forest floor. Metal screamed against stone as the ship finally came to rest in a small clearing. Smoke poured from the engine compartment. "Everyone alive?" Taewan asked, unbuckling his restraints. "Define alive," Du-Hyen groaned, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "I think I left my stomach back in orbit." Wusong was already moving, gathering their gear from the emergency lockers. "Sir, we have incoming. Ground forces may be 20 minutes out." Taewan checked his equipment. The experimental weapons they had been given were intact, but their communication system was dead. They were on their own now, cut off from any hope of rescue. The mission continues, he said firmly. We find the command center. We complete the objective. They moved through the alien forest in single file, Du-Hyun taking point with his assault rifle ready. The trees were unlike anything on Earth there. Trunks twisted into impossible spirals and their leaves shimmering with an inner light. Strange sounds echoed through the undergrowth, the calls of creatures that had never known human footsteps. Movement 2 o'clock, Sujin whispered. Raising her sniper rifle, Kethani warriors emerged from the blue shadows, their armor gleaming like polished metal. They moved with fluid grace, their elongated limbs carrying them across the uneven ground without effort. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Take them down, Taewon ordered. The forest erupted in gunfire. Du-Hyun's rifle chattered as he laid down covering fire, forcing the Kethani to take cover behind the strange trees. Sujin's sniper rifle cracked once, twice, and 2 enemies fell. Wushong flanked left, his plasma rifle burning through alien armor, but for every Kethani they killed, 2 more seemed to take their place. The enemy kept coming, wave after wave, of blue-skinned warriors with glowing eyes and weapons that could cut through steel. We can't hold them, Du-Hyun shouted over the noise of battle. There are too many. Then we run, Taewon replied. Move toward the command center. Use the trees for cover. They fought their way through the forest, leaving a trail of alien bodies behind them. But the cost was high. Woo-sung took a plasma bolt to the shoulder, the wound cauterized instantly by the alien weapon. Du-Hyun's armor was cracked and smoking from multiple hits. Sir, Du-Hyun said as they took cover behind a fallen tree. I'm not going to make it much further. My power cell is almost dead, and I've got internal bleeding. Don't leave anyone behind, Taewon said firmly. You have to, Du-Hyun insisted. The mission is more important than any of us. That's what you taught me. Before Taewon could argue, more Kethani warriors appeared on both flanks. They were surrounded, outnumbered 10-1. Du-Hyun made his choice. Tell my wife I love her, he said, then stood up with his rifle blazing. Go now. Taewon watched his oldest friend charge into the enemy ranks, buying them precious seconds with his life. Du-Hyun fell under a hail of plasma fire, but not before taking down 6 more enemies. The sergeant's sacrifice opened a gap in the Kethani lines. This way, Taewon ordered, his voice thick with emotion. They ran through the gap, leaving Du-Hyun's body behind in the alien forest. The command center appeared ahead of them, a crystalline structure that seemed to grow from the ground itself. It was beautiful and terrible, like a frozen scream made of glass and light. Energy barriers flickered around its base, and guard towers rose from its sides. How do we get in? Sujin asked. Shtuan creates a distraction, Taewon said. Draw their attention to the east wall. Hwa Jujin and I will go in from the west. The young private nodded grimly. He knew what a distraction meant. He knew he wouldn't be coming back. It's been an honor serving with you, sir, Woo-sung said, then disappeared into the blue forest. Minutes later, explosions erupted from the east side of the command center. Kethani warriors rushed toward the sound, leaving the west wall lightly defended. Taewon and Sujin moved quickly, using their experimental weapons to cut through the energy barriers. Inside the command center, they found corridors of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The walls seemed to breathe, and the floor felt warm beneath their feet. It was like walking through the heart of some vast organism. The central chamber should be this way, Sujin said, consulting her scanner. They moved deeper into the structure, past chambers filled with alien technology and rooms that defied human understanding. The command center was larger than it appeared from outside, its crystal walls extending far underground. Finally, they reached a vast chamber at the heart of the complex. Taewon expected to find banks of computers, tactical displays, and dozens of enemy officers. Instead, he found a single figure standing in the center of the room. Empress Janae was nothing like the monster described in human propaganda. She was tall, yes, but graceful rather than threatening. Her blue skin seemed to glow with inner light, and her eyes held depths that spoke of ancient wisdom. She wore simple robes rather than armor, and she carried no weapons. She was waiting for them. You are Captain Lee Taewon, she said in perfect Korean. Her voice was soft, almost musical. I have been expecting you. Tae-won raised his rifle, but something made him hesitate. The Empress made no move to defend herself. She simply stood there, watching him with those deep, sad eyes. You sent your people to die getting here, she continued. Sergeant Kim Do-haen and Private Han Woo-sung. Brave men who deserved better than to be sacrificed for a lie. How do you know their names? Sujin demanded, her sniper rifle trained on the Empress. I know many things, Janae replied. I know that you were sent here to die. I know that your own people consider you expendable. I know that this war is not what you think it is. Tae-won's finger tightened on the trigger. You're the enemy. You've killed millions of humans, have I? Janae asked gently. Or have I been trying to save them? The crystal surfaces began to glow, showing holographic images. Human colonies, but not destroyed ones. These were thriving communities, protected by Kethany shields, their people living in peace. What is this? Tae-won whispered. The truth, Janae said. The truth that someone does not want you to know. The truth that got you sent here to die. More images appeared. Meeting rooms where humans and Kethany worked together. Children of both species playing in gardens. Scientists sharing knowledge. All of it hidden from the public. All of it denied by both governments. There is a third party in this war, Janae continued. An enemy that feeds on conflict, that grows stronger with each battle. They have agents in both our governments, ensuring that every attempt at peace fails. Tae-won's rifle wavered. Nothing made sense anymore. Everything he had believed about the war was crumbling. You're lying, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Janae stepped closer, unafraid of his weapon. You ask questions, Captain? You wondered why your strategies always failed? You suspected that someone was feeding information to the enemy. You were right to be suspicious. She touched a crystal panel and new images appeared. Human officials meeting with shadowy figures. Admiral Park among them, his face grim as he received orders from beings that seemed to shift and waver like smoke. The enemy is not the Kethany, Janae said softly. The enemy is something far worse, something that wants both our species to destroy each other. Tae-won lowered his rifle. His hands were shaking. Why are you telling me this? Because you are the only human who asked the right questions, Janae replied. Because you are the only one who might be able to help me stop this war before it destroys us all. She held out her hand, palm up in a gesture of peace. Help me, Captain Lee, Tae-won. Help me save both our peoples. For a long moment, Tae-won stared at the outstretched hand. Everything he had been taught told him to shoot. Everything he had experienced told him to trust her. Finally, he made his choice. He took her hand. The Empress's private chambers were nothing like what Tae-won expected. Books lined the walls, real paper books from dozens of different worlds. Human poetry sat next to Kethany's philosophy. Earth music played softly in the background, mixing with alien melodies that somehow fit together perfectly. Please, sit, Janae said, gesturing to cushions arranged around a low table. You must be tired after your journey. Tae-won remained standing, his rifle still in his hands, though no longer pointed at her. Sujin covered the door, her eyes scanning for threats that never came. The whole situation felt wrong, like a dream that might turn into a nightmare at any moment. Start talking, Tae-won said. Hey, tell me about this third party. Tell me why I should believe anything you say. Gin moved to a crystal panel on the wall. With a gentle touch, she activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. The image showed a star map, but not like any Tae-won had ever seen. Dark tendrils spread between systems like infection, and at the center of it all was something that hurt to look at directly. They called themselves the Vexi. Janae began. They are old, older than either of our species. They are made of pure energy, beings of thought and hunger that exist between dimensions. The display shifted, showing shadowy figures that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Their forms were never quite solid, always shifting like smoke. Given shape by will alone, they feed on conflict, Genna continued. Every battle, every death, every moment of hatred between living beings makes them stronger. They have been guiding the development of organic races for millions of years, always pushing us toward war. Where Tae-Wan studied the images. The Vexai looked like nightmares made real, beings of pure malevolence that existed only to cause suffering. But it was too convenient, too easy. It's a perfect enemy to unite humans and Kethany against. Could be making this up, he said, showing me fake images to gain my trust. I could, Janae agreed, but I am not. She touched another panel, and the display changed again. Now it showed Earth, but not as Tae-Wan remembered it. Dark figures moved through the corridors of the Terran Defense Council. They walked among humans, but their movements were wrong, too fluid, too purposeful. They have been infiltrating both our governments for decades, Janae explained. Not possessing people, but influencing them. Whispering in their ears, feeding their fears and prejudices, ensuring that every peace talk fails. The image focused on a familiar figure. Admiral Park sat in a meeting room, but he was not alone. A shadow loomed behind him, its form shifting like oil on water. Park's face was strained, as if he was fighting against something inside his own mind. Admiral Park is not evil, Janae said gently. He is a good man who has been corrupted by forces he cannot understand. The Vexai do not take over minds. Completely, they simply amplify the darkness that already exists within. Sujin lowered her rifle slightly. If this is true, then why are you showing us? Why not just tell your own people? Because I have, Janae replied sadly. My generals think I am weak. My advisors believe I have lost my mind. They see only the immediate threat of human forces, not the greater danger that manipulates us all. The display shifted again, showing Kethany council chambers. Blue-skinned leaders argued violently, while dark figures whispered in their ears. The same corruption that plagued humanity was present among the Kethani. The same invisible poison turning allies into enemies. The Vexai are patient, Janae continued. They have spent centuries preparing for this moment. Why won't both our species to fight until we are too weak to resist them? Then they will harvest our life force and move on to the next galaxy. Tae-Wan set down his rifle and moved closer to the display. The evidence was overwhelming, but part of him still resisted. His entire life had been built on the belief that the Kethani were the enemy, that this war was necessary for human survival. Show me proof, he said. Something that cannot be faked. Janae nodded and activated another panel. The air shimmered, and suddenly they were no longer in the chamber. They stood in the middle of a vast space filled with swirling energy, looking down at what appeared to be a massive construction project. This is the Vexai harvesting station, Janae explained. Hidden in the dead system between our territories, they have been building it for 50 years, waiting for the right moment to activate it. The structure was enormous, larger than any city Tae-Wan had ever seen. Dark energy swirled around it like a living thing, and at its center was something that made his mind recoil in horror. It was a mouth, a vast opening that seemed to lead into nothingness itself. When activated, it will drain the life force from every living being within 100 light-years, Janae said. Humans, Kethany, even the smallest microorganisms. Everything will die to feed their hunger. Sujin stepped forward, her face pale. How do we stop it? We cannot, Janae replied. Not alone. But together, our species might have a chance. The Vexai are powerful, but they are not invincible. They can be fought, but only if we stop fighting each other. The vision faded, and they were back in the chamber. Tae-Wan sat down heavily on one of the cushions, his mind reeling from what he had seen. Everything he thought he knew about the war had been turned upside down. Why did you really bring me here? He asked. Janae sat across from him, her expression grave. Because you are the only human who asked the right questions. Because you have the respect of your people and the courage to seek truth, even when it is dangerous. Because I need an ally who can help me expose the Vexai influence. And what do you want me to do? Return to your people, Janae said. Oh, tell them what you have learned. Begin building a resistance movement within the human military. I will do the same among the Kethani. When the time comes, we will strike together. Tae-Wan looked at Sujin, who nodded slowly. She had seen the same evidence, felt the same terrible truth. The war they had been fighting was a lie, and the real enemy was something far worse than either of them had imagined. "How do I know you won't betray me?" Taewon asked. "You do not," Janae replied honestly, "just as I do not know if you will. Betray me. Trust is a choice, Captain. We can choose to trust each other, or we can choose to let the Vex High destroy both our peoples." She stood and moved to another panel, activating a communication system. "I am going to stage my own death. My forces will believe they saw you kill me. You will return to Earth as a hero, the man who ended the Cathani threat. It will give you the influence you need to build your resistance. And what about you?" "I will become my own sister," Janae said with a slight smile. "The new Empress, younger and more aggressive than her predecessor. It will explain any changes in Cathani strategy. While allowing me to work from within, the plan was audacious, dangerous, and probably impossible. But it was also the only chance they had to stop the real enemy before it was too late." "There's one more thing," Janae said quietly. "The Vexai know about you. They know you have been asking questions, getting too close to the truth. They wanted you dead, which is why you were sent on this mission." Taewon nodded grimly. "I figured that out on my own." "They will try again," Janae warned. "They will send assassins, manipulate your friends, turn your own people against you. You must be very careful about who you trust. I understand." Moved to a cabinet and withdrew a small crystal device. "This will allow us to communicate securely. The Vexai cannot intercept or decode transmissions sent through Cathani quantum crystals." Taewon took the device, feeling its warm surface pulse with inner light. "How long do we have?" "Not long," Janae replied. "The harvesting station is almost complete. Perhaps 6 months, maybe less. We must move quickly if we are to have any hope of stopping them." A soft chime echoed through the chamber. Janae checked a display and frowned. "My guards are returning. It is time for you to kill me." She handed him a small device that looked like a grenade. "This will create a bright flash and a lot of noise. It will also release a chemical that will make me appear dead for several hours. Use it when I give the signal." Taewon pocketed the device. "What is the signal?" "I will say the word please in Korean," Janae replied. "When you hear that, activate the device and run. Do not look back. Do not hesitate. Performance must be convincing." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor outside. Janae straightened, her expression becoming cold and imperious. In seconds, she transformed from the gentle teacher into the fearsome Empress of human nightmares. "Remember," she said quietly, "after today, we are enemies in public. But in private, we are allies working toward the same goal. Trust no one completely, but trust me enough to save both our peoples." The door burst open, and Cathani guards rushed in with weapons ready. Janae raised her hand, and they stopped, awaiting her command. "So," she said in a voice like ice, "the human assassin finally shows his true face." Taewon raised his rifle, his finger on the trigger of the fake grenade. The greatest performance of his life was about to begin. 6 months later, Captain Lee Taewon stood on the balcony of his apartment overlooking New Tokyo. The city sprawled below him, its lights twinkling like stars in the darkness. Parades had been held in his honor. Medals decorated his chest. Children knew his name as the hero who killed the Cathani Empress and saved humanity from destruction. All of it was a lie. The fake death had worked perfectly. The flashbang device had created enough chaos for him and Sujin to escape, while Janae lay motionless on the crystal floor. By the time the Cathani guards realized what had happened, they were already at the extraction point. The rescue ship had found them exactly where Janae had promised it would be. Now. Taewon was the most famous man in human space, and he hated every moment of it. His apartment door chimed softly. Taewon checked the security display and saw hey da da da, hey da 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 da, hey da da is os. Da da. Men. Men da. Da da. Beta. 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 Da ba. Beta. 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 But when I'm set to be sub, but a better bombs and for when I'm so we're on when I that bombs. Familiar face. Colonel Yoon Min-ho had been his academy roommate, one of the few people he still trusted completely. But trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. Come in, Min-ho, Taewon said, activating the door lock. Min-ho entered with a bottle of rice wine and 2 glasses. He was a small man with kind eyes and calloused hands from years of military service. They had fought together on Proxima Station. Saved each other's lives more than once. I thought we should celebrate, Min-ho said, pouring the wine. 6 months since you ended the war. The Kethani have pulled back to their core systems. Trade routes are opening again. You did it, Taewon? You actually did it. Taewon accepted the glass, but did not drink. Through his quantum crystal communicator, he had been receiving regular reports from Janae. The Kethani withdrawal was real, but it was strategic, not a retreat. She was pulling her forces back to prepare for the real war against the Vex-High. Tell me something, Min-ho, Taewon said carefully. Do you ever wonder why the war ended so suddenly? 1 dead Empress, and suddenly the entire Kethani Empire collapses? Min-ho shrugged. Their whole society was built around her. With Janae gone, they had no one to unite them. It makes sense, does it? Taewon moved to his desk and activated a holographic display. Look at this. Intelligence reports from the past 6 months. The Kethani haven't collapsed. They've reorganized under a new Empress, Janae's younger sister. Their military is stronger than ever. Then why haven't they attacked? That is the question, isn't it? Min-ho studied the data, his expression growing troubled. What are you saying, Taewon? I'm saying that maybe we don't understand this war as well as we think we do. Over the past months, Taewon had been carefully building a network of trusted allies within the human military. Men and women who had noticed the same inconsistencies he had, who asked the same uncomfortable questions. Min-ho was the latest. Recruit, though he didn't know it yet. The quantum crystal in Taewon's pocket pulsed softly, indicating an incoming message. He excused himself and stepped into his bedroom. Activating the secure communication link, Janae's image appeared in the air, translucent and flickering. She looked tired, older somehow than she had 6 months ago. Leading a double life was taking its toll on both of them. How are things on your end? She asked without preamble. Slow progress, Taewon replied. I've identified 12 officers who suspect something is wrong with the official story. But moving too fast will attract unwanted attention. The Vex-High are becoming more active, Janae warned. My agents report increased shadow activity on both Earth and Keth Prime. They know we are working together. Any direct threats? Assassination attempts in the past month. All failed, but they are getting closer. You must be careful, Taewon. They want you dead more than ever. Through the hologram, Taewon could see the strain in her eyes. She was fighting a war on multiple fronts, maintaining her cover while building a resistance movement among her own people. It was a burden that would have crushed a lesser person. There is something else, Janae continued. The harvesting station is nearly complete. Our window for action is closing rapidly. How long do we have? 2 months, perhaps 3? After 2, that it will be too late to stop them. The connection flickered and died. Taewon pocketed the crystal and returned to the main room, where Min-ho was still studying the intelligence reports. These numbers don't add up, Min-ho said slowly. If the Kethani are as weak as the reports claim, why haven't we pressed our advantage? Why aren't we reclaiming the lost colonies? Because someone doesn't want us to, Taewon replied. Wants this war to continue indefinitely? That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. Taewon moved to his wall safe and withdrew a datapad containing carefully collected evidence. Information about the Vex-High was too dangerous to store digitally, so he had printed everything on paper and hidden it in old-fashioned physical storage. What I'm about to show you will change everything you believe about this war, he said. Are you prepared for that? Min-ho nodded grimly. Show me. For the next 2 hours, Taewon laid out the truth. The existence of the Vex-High, The manipulation of both governments. The harvesting station hidden in deep space. The fake death of Empress Janae and their secret alliance. Minho listened in stunned silence, occasionally asking questions, but mostly just absorbing the terrible reality of their situation. When Taewon finished, his friend sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. "This is insane," Minho said finally. "Energy beings that feed on conflict? Ancient conspiracies? Secret alliances with our supposed enemies. It sounds like something from a bad science fiction movie. I know how it sounds, but you believe it. I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. I've spoken with Janae. I've felt the presence of the Vexi influence in council meetings." Taewon leaned forward. "Minho, I need you to trust me. More than that, I need you to help me." "Help you do what?" "Build a resistance. Find others who are willing to fight the real enemy. Prepare for a war that most people don't even know is coming." Minho was quiet for a long time, processing everything he had learned. Finally, he looked up at Taewon with decision in his eyes. "What do you need me to do?" Over the following weeks, their network grew. Lieutenant Commander Park Soo-jin, an intelligence analyst who had noticed pattern anomalies in Cathani communications. Major Kim Dong-woo, a logistics officer who had questioned why certain supply shipments were classified above his clearance level. Captain Lee Ji-hai, pilot who had reported strange energy readings near the dead systems. Each recruitment was carefully planned and executed. Taewon would approach potential allies with subtle questions, testing their reactions, gauging their willingness to consider uncomfortable truths. Only when he was certain of their loyalty would he reveal the full scope of the conspiracy. But the Vexi were not idle. Strange accidents began to plague members of Taewon's network. Equipment failures that resulted in near-fatal crashes, food poisoning that struck with suspicious timing, computer viruses that destroyed years of research. The message was clear: stop digging, or face the consequences. The breaking point came when Taewon returned to his apartment one evening to find his sister, Lieutenant Colonel Lee Myung, waiting. For him, she sat in his chair, her face emotionless, her eyes reflecting light like mirrors. "Hello, brother," she said in a voice that was hers, but somehow wrong. "We need to talk." Taewon's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon, but Myung was faster. Energy crackled around her fingers, and Taewon found himself frozen in place. Unable to move, "The Vexi send their regards," Myung said, though her lips barely moved. "You have been warned repeatedly to stop your investigation. You have chosen not to listen." Myung, Taewon gasped, fighting against the invisible bonds that held him. "Fight them. I know you're still in there." "Your sister volunteered for this honor," the thing wearing Myung's face replied. "She believes she is serving humanity. By eliminating a traitor to the war effort." The irony is delicious. Through the apartment's windows, Taewon could see the lights of New Tokyo. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that their world was about to end. Unaware that their hero was about to be murdered by his own sister. "You cannot stop what is coming," the Vexi said through Myung's mouth. "The harvesting will begin soon. Both your species will feed our hunger, and we will grow strong enough to consume the next galaxy." "Maybe," Taewon said, activating the emergency beacon hidden in his sleeve. "But we're going to try." The beacon sent a coded signal to his network, alerting them that he was in danger. Within minutes, sirens would wail across the city as loyal soldiers moved to predetermined positions. The resistance he had built was about to be tested. Myung's eyes widened as she realized what he had done. "You fool, you've doomed them all." "No," Taewon replied, finally breaking free of her hold. "I've given them a chance to fight back." The battle for humanity's soul was about to begin. The emergency beacon's signals spread through New Tokyo like wildfire. Within minutes, loyal members of Taewon's resistance network were moving to their assigned positions. Colonel Minho activated the communication hub in the old subway tunnels. Major Kim Dong-woo secured the weapons depot beneath the spaceport. Captain Lee Ji-hai prepared her squadron for immediate takeoff, but Taewon was trapped in his apartment with his sister, who was no longer his sister. Myung moved with inhuman speed, her hands crackling with dark energy. The Vexi influence had changed her, made her into something that looked human, but was not. Her eyes glowed with alien hunger, and when she spoke, multiple voices echoed from her throat. "Your little rebellion ends here," she said, raising her hands to strike. Taiwan dove behind his couch as energy bolts scorched the air where he had been standing. The crystal communicator in his pocket grew hot, and suddenly, Janae's voice filled his mind through their quantum link. "Taiwan, what is happening? I sense Vex High presence near you." "My sister," he gasped, rolling away from another energy blast. "They're using her against me. You must break their hold on her." Physical contact disrupts their control, but only for a few seconds. Myung stalked around the couch, her movements jerky and unnatural. "The Vexai have shown me the truth, brother. Humanity's weak. We deserve to be consumed. It is the natural order." "That's not you talking," Taiwan said, pulling out his sidearm. Couldn't bring himself to aim it at his sister's face. "Fight them, Myung. Remember who you are." "I am what they made me," she replied, but for just a moment her voice was her own again. "Taiwan, help me. Can't stop myself." The plea gave Taiwan the opening he needed. He lunged forward, tackling Myung to the ground. The moment his hands touched her arms, the dark energy around her flickered and died. Her eyes cleared, becoming human again. "Brother," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "What have I done? I tried to resist them, but they were so strong." "It's not your fault," Taiwan said, helping her sit up. "How long have they been?" "Influencing you. Months. Maybe longer. They started small, just whispers in my dreams. Then they began showing me visions of you betraying humanity, working with the enemy. I believed them because the evidence seemed so real." Through the apartment windows, Taiwan could see aircraft moving through the night sky. His resistance network was activating, but they needed more time to coordinate their efforts. "Myung, I need you to listen carefully," he said. "Everything you think you know about this war is wrong. Kethani aren't our real enemy. There's something else, something far worse." He quickly explained about the Vex High, about his alliance with Guinea, about the harvesting station that threatened both species. Myung listened with growing horror, her military training helping her process the impossible truth. "The energy. Beings that spoke through me," she said slowly. "They weren't human thoughts. They felt cold, hungry, like they wanted to devour everything. That's exactly what they want to do." The quantum crystal pulsed again, and Janae's voice returned. "Taiwan, I'm receiving reports of similar attacks across human space. The Vex High are moving to eliminate anyone who might expose them. Can you help us?" "I'm already on my way. My personal fleet is approaching Earth now. But there's something else you need to know. The harvesting station has begun its activation. Sequence. We have perhaps 6 hours before it becomes fully operational. 6 hours. Not enough time to mount a proper defense. Barely enough time to evacuate a single city. But maybe enough time to strike back. What do you need from me?" One asked. "Get to the Planetary Defense Center. Use your access codes to lower Earth's orbital shields. My ships will appear to be attacking, but will actually be targeting Vex High installations." Myung grabbed his arm. "One, if you do that, they'll execute you for treason. Not if we succeed," he replied grimly. "And if we fail, it won't matter anyway." The siblings left the apartment together. Making their way through the chaotic streets of New Tokyo, emergency sirens wailed in the distance, and military vehicles raced toward unknown destinations. The city felt like it was holding its breath. Waiting for something terrible to happen, Colonel Minho met them at the entrance to the defense center, his face grim with determination. "The network is ready," he reported. 12 cells across 5 continents, but the Vexi are fighting back hard. We've lost contact with 3 teams already. What about the government?" One asked. Admiral Park called an emergency session of the Defense Council. "We're debating whether to declare martial law." Taiwan's jaw tightened. Park was either completely under Vexi control or so deeply manipulated that it made no difference. Either way, the official government could not be trusted. They entered the defense center through a maintenance tunnel that Minho's people had secured. The facility was a maze of corridors and control rooms, all focused on protecting Earth from orbital attack. Ironically, Taiwan was about to use it to invite an attack. Their Miyang pointed to a massive blast door marked with radiation warnings. The primary shield generators are behind that door.
But
The moment you shut them down, every alarm in the system will go off. I know. They'll send everything they have to stop you. I know that too. Taewon placed his hand on the security scanner, using his hero's credentials to override the locks. The blast door groaned open, revealing a chamber filled with humming machinery and glowing control panels. The quantum crystal burned against his chest as Jin'e's fleet appeared on the facility's sensors to the defense center's automated systems. It looked like the largest Cathani attack in history. Alarms began screaming throughout the building. "Contact!" shouted a technician from the main control room. At Cathani fleet emerging from hyperspace. Estimated strength, 50 capital ships and over 200 fighters. "Impossible," someone else replied. Intelligence said their fleet was destroyed. K1 reached the shield controls and began entering his authorization codes. It took precious seconds, and he could hear security forces rushing toward the generator room. "Taewon?" Janae's voice came through the crystal. "Are you ready? I need those shields down in 30 seconds. "Almost there," he replied, his fingers flying over the controls. The blast door behind them exploded inward as security forces breached. "The room stand down," shouted the team leader. "Step away from the controls." Myung and Minho moved to block the entrance, buying Tae-1 precious seconds. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with smoke and the smell of burned metal. "Shields at 20%, Tae-1 announced. 10%. 5%, drop them now," Nay commanded. Tae-1 slammed his hand down on the final control. Earth's orbital shields collapsed, leaving the planet defenseless for the first time in 50 years. On the tactical displays, Jin'e's fleet swept in toward the surface. But instead of attacking cities, the Cathani ships targeted specific coordinates that most humans had never heard of. Underground facilities, secret installations, places where the Vexi had been building their influence for decades. "What's happening?" demanded the security team leader, lowering his weapon in confusion. "Why aren't they attacking population centers?" "Because they're not our enemy," Taewon said, stepping away from the controls with his hands raised. They never were. On the screens around them, explosions bloomed across the planet's surface. But these weren't random attacks of conquest. They were surgical strikes against targets that had been hidden from human awareness for generations. Real war had finally begun. Janae's voice echoed through the defense center's communication system, broadcast on all frequencies. "People of Earth, I am Empress Janae of the Cathani Empire. For too long, both our species have been manipulated by an enemy that feeds on our conflict. Today, that manipulation ends." Broadcast continued, revealing the truth about the Vexi, about the harvesting station, about the alliance between human and Cathani forces. Across Earth and throughout human space, people watched in stunned silence as everything they believed about the war was turned upside down. "We have 6 hours to stop the harvesting station," Janae continued. 6 hours to save both our species. From extinction, I call upon all humans of courage and wisdom to join us in this final battle. Some would refuse to believe. Some would see only an alien invasion. Oh, but enough would listen, enough would understand to make the alliance possible. The defense center erupted in chaos as officers tried to process the impossible situation. But gradually, as the evidence mounted and the truth became undeniable, resistance gave way to cooperation. Earth's greatest hero had become a traitor in the eyes of many, but he had also become humanity's last hope for survival. The final battle against the real enemy was about to begin. The Vexi harvesting station hung in space like a wound in reality itself. Dark energy swirled around its massive structure, and at its center, the great maw that would devour two civilizations yawned open. Tae-1 stood on the bridge of Jin'e's flagship, watching the nightmare approach through the viewport. 5 minutes until full activation, reported Commander Park So-young, one of the few human officers who had immediately joined the alliance. After that, the harvesting beam will be unstoppable. Around them, the combined fleet of humans and Cathani moved in perfect formation. Ships that had been firing at each other just hours ago now fought side by side against their common enemy. It was beautiful and terrible, this unity born from desperation. Sujin's team is in position, Janae announced from her command chair. The Empress looked tired but determined, her blue skin pale with exhaustion. She says the station's power core is heavily defended. Taewon nodded grimly. His old sniper had volunteered to lead the infiltration team, claiming she owed it to Do-haen and Wasoon to finish what they had started. He wanted to argue, but they both knew she was the best choice for the mission. Contact from the station called the communications officer. The Vexi want to speak with you. The main screen flickered, and a shape that hurt to look at directly appeared before them. The Vexi entity was like smoke given form, constantly shifting between dimensions. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Captain Lee Tae-won, it said, pronouncing his name like a curse. You have delayed the inevitable. Both your species will still feed our hunger. The harvesting cannot be stopped. We'll see about that, Taewon replied. You understand nothing. We have guided the evolution of organic life for millions of years. We have harvested thousands of species across countless galaxies. You are insects compared to our power. Maybe, Taewon said. But insects can still bite. The Vexi entity laughed, a sound like breaking glass mixed with screaming wind. Your ally will betray you. It is inevitable. Organic beings always choose self-preservation over alliance. Taewon looked at Janae, who met his gaze steadily. They had come too far together to doubt each other now. You don't understand, Janae said to the entity. We are no longer fighting for our separate species. We are fighting for something larger. Impossible. Organic minds cannot conceive of unity beyond their tribal boundaries. Then you're about to learn something new, Taewon said, cutting the transmission. The battle began in earnest as Vex-High fighters swarmed from hidden bays within the station. These were not ships in any traditional sense, but manifestations of pure energy given shape by alien will. They moved through space like living things, dodging and weaving between the Allied fleet's defensive fire. Sujin's team has breached the outer hull, reported Commander Park, but they're encountering heavy resistance. Through his quantum crystal, Taewon could hear the sounds of battle from inside the station. Plasma rifles fired in rapid bursts, while Sujin's voice gave calm, professional orders to her mixed human Kethany strike team. Taewon Janae said quietly, moving to stand beside him. If we don't succeed today, I want you to know that these past months have been the greatest honor of my life. Working with you, learning from your people, seeing what we could accomplish together. We're going to succeed, Taewon replied, but his voice lacked conviction. The Vex-High defenses were stronger than they had anticipated, and time was running out. 3 minutes to activation, announced the tactical officer. On the screen, Sujin's team fought their way deeper into the station. The Kethani warriors moved with fluid grace, while the human soldiers provided covering fire with brutal efficiency. It was exactly the kind of cooperation that the Vex-High claimed was impossible. I've reached the power core, Sujin's voice crackled through the cum. But there's a problem. The destruction sequence requires someone to stay behind and manually activate it. The radiation will kill anyone within 50 meters. Taewon's blood ran cold. Negative, Sujin. Find another way. There is no other way, sir. Someone has to make the sacrifice. I'll do it, volunteered Kethvin, one of the Kethany warriors on the infiltration team. My life for both our peoples. No, Sujin said firmly. This is my mission. I lost too many friends to these monsters. Du-haen, Wasoon, all the others who died believing in a lie. This is for them, Sujin, Taewon said, his voice breaking. There has to be another way. Sometimes there isn't, sir. You taught me that. Take care of yourself. And take care of our new allies. The transmission cut to static. 2 minutes to activation, the tactical officer reported. But his voice was barely a whisper. Janae placed her hand on Taewon's shoulder. She chose this. Honor her choice by making it count. On the tactical display, the power core of the harvesting station began to fluctuate. Sujin was beginning the destruction sequence, trading her life for the survival of 2 species. 30 seconds to activation came the announcement. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3. The harvesting station exploded. The blast was visible from across the system, a brilliant flash of light that outshone the local star for several seconds. When the glare faded, nothing remained of the Vex-High weapon except expanding debris and cooling plasma. A cheer went up. From both human and Kethany ships, voices united in celebration despite the language barriers. They had done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had existed since the dawn of time. But the victory felt hollow to Taewon. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. Uhayan, Uson, Sujin, and countless others whose names would never be remembered. "It's over," Janae said softly. "The Vex-High influence is broken. Their agents on our worlds will lose their power without the harvesting station to fuel them." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we build something new. Something better than either of our species could achieve alone." The transition was not easy. Years passed before humans and Kethany learned to truly trust each other. There were setbacks, conflicts, moments when old prejudices threatened to tear the alliance apart. But gradually, understanding replaced fear. Taewon found himself appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the Kethany Empire. Jinae became the first Empress to rule over multiple species. Their relationship, professional at first, deepened into something neither had expected. They were married in a ceremony that combined traditions from both worlds, witnessed by representatives from dozens of species that had joined the growing alliance. Their children, the first human Kethany hybrids, became symbols of hope for a future where differences were celebrated rather than feared. 5 years after the battle at the harvesting station, Taewon stood in the gardens of New Harmony, the first integrated city built by both species working together. Children of many worlds played in the sunshine, their laughter echoing across the carefully tended landscapes. "Do you ever regret it?" Janae asked, joining him on the observation deck. "Is giving up your old life for this uncertainty?" "Never," Taewon replied, watching their daughter chase a butterfly with 3 other children. "This is what we were meant to build. Not an empire of conquest, but an empire of cooperation." "The Terran officials are still suspicious of our motives," Jinae noted. "Admiral Park's replacement thinks we're moving too fast. Change is always frightening. But look at them." Taewon gestured to the children below. "They don't see differences the way we do. To them, blue skin or pale skin, 2 arms or 4, it's all just part of the natural order." "Perhaps that's the real victory," Janae mused. "Not defeating the Vex-High, but creating something they never imagined possible." A messenger approached with the daily reports. More worlds requesting to join the alliance. New technologies developed through cross-species cooperation. Trade agreements that benefited everyone involved. The empire they were building bore no resemblance to the traditional model of conqueror and conquered. "There's a request from the Zephyrian delegation," the messenger reported. "They want to discuss mining rights in the Centauri system." "Schedule a meeting for next week," Jinae replied. "And make sure the Environmental Protection Committee is involved from the beginning." As the messenger departed, Taewon reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had been sent to die against her army, branded a traitor by his own. People, forced to choose between everything he had been taught and everything he believed was right. Now he stood as coroller of an alliance that spanned dozens of worlds and represented the hopes of billions of beings. The empire they had built was founded on principles that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Mutual respect, shared knowledge, and the radical idea that diversity made them stronger rather than weaker. "The Council is requesting our input on the new education curriculum," Guinness said, reviewing her tablet. "They want to ensure that children learn about both our histories, not just their own species' perspective." "Approved," Taewon said without hesitation. "The more they understand about each other, the less likely they are to repeat our mistakes." As the sun set over New Harmony, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Taewon felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The war was over. The real war, the one that had been hidden behind the conflict between humans and Kethany, had ended. With the destruction of the harvesting station, but peace was not an ending. It was a beginning. Every day brought new challenges, new opportunities to prove that cooperation was stronger than conquest. That understanding was more powerful than fear. The man who had been sent to die against her army now helped her build a civilization that honored the best qualities of every species involved. It was not the ending anyone had expected, but it was the ending they had chosen to create together, and in the laughter of children who saw no barriers between species, in the friendship of former enemies, in the quiet satisfaction of building something lasting and good, Taewon found the peace that had eluded him throughout the long years of war. The empire they ruled was not perfect, but it was theirs, built on hope rather than fear, on unity rather than division. And that, he thought, was the greatest victory of all.